not doing this for Dolo.
I control the crowd. You know how I hold it down. When it drop, you know it's jiggy when you hear the sound.
We rock the bell so very well, cause that's the name of this jam. Rock the bell.
But the only way we could truly reach that goal.
After 10 years without no spouse, mama's getting married in the house.
Oh man.
We ain't never gonna stop hitting you in your head with that.
I just aim and destroy. I keep it gully in the bona fide sky.
When it's on, it's on. I'm on till I'm gone. And I ain't got no.
Egg tots, underground, left and right, bands around sound.
Yo,
What's happening?
what it do? What it do, homie?
Hey, shit, man. The guys are back in full effect. It's the hip hop corner, act number 2. We back. It's your boy Dre. We got the guy Sean. What's happening, homie?
What it do, homie? How you doing out there?
Man, I'm chilling, man. Maintaining. As y'all know, we are in the epicenter of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We like what New York was at the beginning right now. So just laying low, chilling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you guys on curfew now, right? Out there?
Man, we've been on curfew for about a month and a half or so now, man.
Yeah.
So yeah. But hey, we got a real special show tonight, man. We kicking off what we gonna call the City Series. It's a 5-part series, and we gonna start with none other than the birthplace of hip hop. We're gonna go with New York City.
The Mecca. So
Well, we're not gonna call it the Mecca. We'll say the birthplace.
it's the Mecca. We know that. You know, it's the birthplace of hip hop, where real hip hop came from, and how everything else followed. So the Mecca. Yeah. You know what it is. So, Dre, you was the one who came up partially with the City Series that you wanted to go through. Yeah, partially, because I was able to come up with the other half of that to make it sound exciting. You came up with the initial thought process behind it. So
hey, you know, it's never good when you try to give yourself too much credit.
you
didn't even come up with the cities, the segment, the name, nothing at all, bro.
You made a hot segment. I mean,
oh shit! I'm glad that's who you're quoting and not the other guy. But
whatever, man.
You know, that's neither here nor there.
Whatever. So I'm excited about this, man. I'll be honest with you. I thought when we first talked about this close to a month ago, and we were saying when we come back, we're going to do a City Series, and we're going to start up in New York where it all started. And I was getting kind of nervous because I wanted to do it justice, but I also didn't want to be a situation where we're talking more historical things, because I think that a lot of other platforms have already discussed that. So before we get into it, I just want to throw disclaimers out there. These are all our opinions. These are not things that we research and we are calling quantifiable facts. These are our opinions. This is our thought process behind, you know, the City Series sound. Like what made that city tick? What made the sounds of that city tick? And most importantly, why was that city pretty much like the sound? Like why people gravitated to the sound and to the culture of music from that particular city? And again, you guys know we're kicking it off with in New York, the Mecca, where it all started. So Dre, I'm gonna pass it to you, man. I want you to get us wrapped up for this, because there's a lot of stuff we want to dive into in the next hour and a half.
It's definitely gonna be an hour. I want to throw my disclaimer out there. Buffalo is playing right now, so I apologize to the public. But before we get started, thanks to everybody checking us out as usual on YouTube, checking us out on Facebook. Also, for those that are checking us out on Zingo TV Live, we're on channel 199. That's Blackjack TV. Also, you can catch us on 2 radio networks. You can catch us on I-95 Sports Radio Network, and you can catch us on the 1 Mile High Radio Network. So, hey, we got a lot of different platforms that we're on right now. Hey, good evening to you as well, Rebecca. And so I want to start with New York's grittiness. I think that's more fitting. I think it's fitting for who we are. It's fitting for what we listen to. And I want you to tell me about the different, because I say there's different genres of the grittiness. that helped shape New York. So let's start there, man.
I think when you're talking about the sound, right? And I talked with this all day, man. I kept going back and forth on how I felt about this. The grittiness of New York, when you're talking about music, it just gives you that feel. Hoodie season, Timberlands, you know what I'm saying? Puffy jackets or whatever with the double goose, feathers hanging out because you're torn. It's just grungy, right? And grungy. I think that sound, it reminds you of like the A train going on the track, and you hear that rattling sound, right? And you hear the echoes in the hallway, and you hear, people in the background because it's a busy city. It's a city that never sleep, right? So it's always busy, and you just hear like a lot of distortion in the background, and that's that grittiness. And when I think about that, and I know we're going to talk about the timeline in some way, I think that a lot of times when you talk about the sound in the series, the sound of music in New York hip hop, is really about just the atmosphere. You know what I mean? It's really just the city. It's not about the boom bap, but so much. It's more so about the city sound. It's about everything that you're hearing out there, whether it's the pigeons flying on the buildings, the chirping, everything that embodies just the gritty.
Okay, so I'm assuming that Sean has dropped off. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure if that's my area that's popping up. So I'm gonna take over. So when we talk about,
You there? Can you
yeah,
see?
I'm here.
Okay.
I
My
can't
bad.
see you. You got that Boost Mobile network going on or some shit like that.
Can you see me? I'm good.
Yeah, we can see you.
All right, my bad. So what I was saying, like, if you go back to the 70s and to the 80s and how everything started transitioning with the sound, I mean, you got to think about Planet Rock, right? When Planet Rock came out, you know what I'm saying? It was like, it was like that techno, weird sounding shit, right? In that Planet Rock. But then it started transitioning into, the message. Busy Bee came out, Dougie Fresh, Run DMC, so on and so forth. So you start seeing the evolution of hip hop as it start transitioning in New York. So what you about to say?
Oh, nah, I was just gonna talk about what I feel like is more important because obviously, I can't count on you with your Boost Mobile shit.
Eh?
We need a New Yorker to tell. He is a New Yorker. That's the sad part. And he's a New Yorker, Rebecca. And he can't even tell us what New York is really about. He
It's
giving us
that
that
this
outskirts shit. I really think he's from Syracuse, but that's neither here nor there.
for Canada.
But so when I think although I don't like uh this group, I would say the production, it speaks to New York as a whole, at least from the outside in, and that is Havoc. I think Havoc's production is the grittiness and it is the rawness, but it is also it's simplified and it's complex. It's like everything that is a New Yorker. A New Yorker is probably one of the most hypocritical person there is. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, so yeah, I mean, no shots. I'm just saying, like, it's facts.
What are you
And
talking?
so everything that he has, the complexities that Havoc has within his production, I personally think that it really speaks to the sound of New York. And it also gave us everything that we love. Like, when CNN dropped the war report, I think that was the beginning of really New York owning its sound in a period of time where they was trying to compete with the West Coast. You had, a little bit of Southern twang in there because, you had groups like Outkast starting to develop, and you had UGK, they were starting to develop. But the West Coast at this point in time had really took over. So with the West Coast really taking over, New York was searching for that sound. And I think CNN and oh boy, the War Report, that, and you combine that with Mobb Deep, I think that really gave New York that sound and it pushed that sound forward. I hate to give them the credit because of where they're from. And so that's kind of like giving you some type of credit. But Queens is the city that really pushed the New York sound forward, where I think Brooklyn is the city or the borough rather. Brooklyn is the borough that really brought it to the forefront, and they were able to do so even though that they were a different sound, but they still had that grittiness to it. You know what I'm saying? Because if you listen to Ready to Die, especially on a track like Morning, it's still that grittiness, but it was a little bit more polished than what Queens had going on at the moment. Even if you look at Illmatic was a very, very raw and gritty producing wise. It was very raw and it was very gritty. So, but that's going to lead me into something different that I really can't. I can speak on it, but I wouldn't be able to speak on it as much as you would be able to, and that's going to be the different sounds from the different boroughs. You know what I'm saying? Like, what without you saying Queens because that's where you from. What was the better borough?
I want to back up. I don't think the War Report will be in that bloodline of New York sound, and here's why. A couple of reasons why. I think that when you start thinking about like the evolution of it, right? Let's be honest, man. Like when everything hit back in '79, you know what I mean, with New York hip hop and just hip hop in general, all you heard was from '79 to roughly '89 was just really hip hop out of New York. Because I think NWA came out back in '89 as well, right? That's when NWA finally hit the scene in '89. But 88. So before then, you heard nothing but New York shit from hip hop, right? So I go back to the boom bap era when it was just in the park, scratching, a DJ and an MC. You know what I mean? It wasn't really no beat. It was really no sound. It was just lyrics. I think the original sound was just wordplay. It was just, how can I get on the mic? How can I freak the mic? How can I get better? How can I be better than my opponent? How can I talk shit to the next person or what have you? I think the original sound was just really the lyrics. It was really just MCing and the DJ because it was a break beat. You had the break beats, you had the boom bap, like doom, 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 doom.
Well, see, but that's why I was going to disagree when you talking about. So that's why I went straight to the '90s, just because earlier, I don't think that we really like you. You're probably right. I don't think there was a sound established only because we were still learning hip hop. It was still new and it was still trying to find its way. But you got to think also at that time, even though it was hip hop, the DJ was still the most important element of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, So,
but even before the War Report, you got Tribe. You know what I'm saying? That came through. You had, you got to go back even to Illmatic. All of that was melodic. It was all jazz. A lot of the early '90s, late '80s was really influenced by jazz. Because you go back and you listen to Illmatic, you listen to Pete Rock samples, you listen to Marley Marl, you listen to all of these legendary producers, even Q-Tip. A lot of that was based off of melody. Even some of the songs, they check out my melody. It was all about the melodic appeal to the song itself. When you speed it up and you get to the War Report came out like in '97. You know what I mean? That's after that first wave, because you cannot forget Wu-Tang. When RZA came out with that grungy, dark dungeon music that no one has ever heard before, that he damn near did by accident by making those beats. When Wu-Tang Into the Wu came out in '93, that was a change, a big shift. It was a big shift from the boom bap era, because now you're talking about, not only was he using old samples, he was using like samples that I don't think no one really know much about during that time, because when he was flipping it, I think he made about 3 or 4 songs off of one sample. He was slowing it down, speeding. I mean, it was just the way RZA was able to create a specific sound for the entire Wu-Tang Clan, not just for the original album or the first album, but you're talking about Method Man album, Ray, Ghost, GZA, all of those guys had a different sound that RZA created off of just sampling older records. That became like really the cornerstone of the hip hop sound, because after that, you start hearing other groups start using a very similar pattern, a very similar drum pattern after when '93 came out, when RZA came out with that album. And then when Nas came out in '94 with Illmatic, and it had more of a jazz feel, more melodic feel, but also still had that grunginess to it, that's when you start seeing a different shift. That was the other cornerstone. The third cornerstone was when you say Havoc and his production along with Alchemist. Again, all of that came from sampling and being able to slow down a good sample and put elements from that sample to make the sound.
But I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think every borough had its different. It's what the my bad. Every borough had its different. Man, Buffalo's pissing me off. Had its different. I'm gonna turn this off. Every borough had its own different sound to include the grittiness. You know what I mean? Like it was gritty everywhere, but each place was different in a so to speak. With the exception of I would say Harlem. I never got the grittiness for Harlem. I think that speaks to their, I got on representing the Harlem niggas right now. You know what I'm saying? Everybody eats B. But the way that the way that they went about things was all about, I just want to be fly, get money. I gotta be chill, like back up off me. I gotta wear my pink. You know what I'm talking about? So they had this, it was all about flash and style with their style in my sense. But when you talk about Brooklyn was very gritty. I went back to Warning, or we could go, we can go with Jay. Jay was gritty, although it was very soulful and melodic. It still was gritty, especially when you know how I do 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 do. So you hear the melody in that shit.
Right.
But when he started flowing over it, like you said, the words is more so the speaks to the sound. His words is very fucking gritty, and then there's that little in there that gives you a little bit of grit, and it makes you feel like, all right, this is what New York City is about. It's not about me riding around in the GS, Bubble I Lexus, or whatever the case may be. It's about getting out there in the buildings, getting that money. You know what I'm saying? Or you listen to a song, where I'm from. That's a 110% grit. You know what I mean? That's all grit. But that was the Brooklyn style of grit. But then when you move over to Queens, I think Queens, with the exception of Nas, even though I would say Nas kept it very gritty, I know it was jazz infused, and that's because of who his pops was. But I still say his album, Illmatic was super gritty in my opinion.
Yeah, because Illmatic had a collection of some of the dopest producers during the time. That was the first album that actually had that many producers producing on one album. If you remember, before then, the only an album from back then, you had one producer producing the entire album. So that album had a lot of synergy that sounded just alike because the beats were different, of course, but you can tell that producer's imprint was all over that. Like Diamond D, when he produced the album, he produced the entire album. Illmatic was the first album where you had a collection of super producers doing that. This is before the moniker super producer came about, but this is when you had the super producers came about, because you had Large Professor, you had Pete Rock, you had Q-Tip, you had Primo, you had some heavy hitters on an Illmatic album for a debut album, which was ridiculous. Now you go back to Biggie and you listen to the Ready to Die, the first album, and this, I think this is where you and I kind of veer off a little bit. I don't think that you can compare Jay-Z in that Brooklyn gritty sound. And here's why. Rockefeller had their own sound. You knew that Rockefeller imprint based on the trajectory on what they were doing with their music at that time, because they had a different thing going on. And we'll get into that in a second. But when you think about that, I think about Brooklyn sound, I think about more so of, I think about Boot Camp Click. You know what I mean?
I was going to say Mos Def.
Mos Def came,
but that was a little bit later. That's what I'm saying. I want to stick to this time frame right now.
Right. He came a little bit later, and him and Talib Kweli, they purposely came to combat the Bad Boy era. You know what I mean? They purposely went that route just to show that, let's not forget about what this is all about. Like Mos Def and Talib and those guys, they came to show we still got like lyrics. We're still about MCing. We're not about the shiny suit era. We're not about the songs and having fun. We're about, let's get to the nitty gritty. That's the lyrics. That's the rhymes. So they came a little bit later. But when you're talking about that Brooklyn sound, I honestly have to lean on, like, from the Big Daddy Kane, then it transitioned into like the Boot Camp Click. Those guys who had that grungy sound. Then you go back and you listen to, you can listen to some of that old stuff, that Jeru the Damager, You know, you got to look at things, listen to that kind of music because that's the true essence of that Brooklyn grungy sound. I would not use Jay or Big in that equation, and here's why. Puffy purposely wanted Big to cross over. So a lot of that music, and if you listen to Ready to Die, like the remastered version of it, if you notice, a lot of those songs hit after they became remixes because, you know, you start using the Juicy sample, One More Chance, you know, using the Ozzy Brothers sample, and so on and so forth. So you listen to the original album, really the B-sides, that was more grungy because that was, I think it was Easy Mo B, if I'm not mistaken. That was doing most of production during that time, and then they kind of switch up a little bit. But that was the Brooklyn sound.
But see, but that's what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to the Brooklyn aspect of it. I'm not talking. We'll get into it later when it comes to the record label, you know, and Puffy. Because again, like I said earlier, Puffy is all about, you know, I want to stand out. Look where he's from. He's from Harlem. Right. So I'm speaking just to what it is that you're going to hear these cats rhyme over. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think even when you listen to Harlem, like you listen to Harlem music, I would use Puffy as an example. And listen like the big time music. If you go back and listen to that Mace album, I think that entire album was sampled like crazy.
Yeah,
and
because that was Puffy.
That was Puffy. That was his production team, the Hitmen. All of those guys like were really great. You know what I mean? You had some actual musicians in the Hitmen, like Stevie J, Sleezo. You know, he was a true musician. And the crazy thing about that, Dre, you know, again, that the New York sound, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but the New York sound changed so quick because in the late 80s, the sound was really just lyrics, MCing. It was just really the boom bap era, right? And then all of a sudden it became grungy for a little period, right? And then it transitioned into that Rockefeller era, that Bad Boy era. Bad Boy kind of started that trend.
I don't like that equation. I'm gonna say this is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say they stayed gritty for a minute because that's what I feel. I feel like they stayed gritty up until the 2000s because you still had, you know what I'm saying, you had D and Y up there doing their thing. And I think that shit was gritty, even though it had like, you know, the sample of the snares and the hi-hats and kind of almost sort of like the Southern shit, the Trigger Man going on. I still think they were gritty. Like if you listen to something like, you know, Stop, Drop, Open Up, Shot, that shit is gritty.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it just that it was able to be commercialized. And then so I don't think Rockefeller, I wouldn't put Rockefeller in the same lane as Bad Boy. And the only reason I say that is because I think Rockefeller, they had two different sides. This is the Jay-Z side, and then this is everybody else. But everybody else wasn't from New York with the exception of Memphis. You know what I'm saying? Except for Bleak, everybody else was from Philly.
Right,
when it comes to Rockefeller.
I'm talking about they first came out because everything that came out after Bad Boy was more so a rebuttal to Bad Boy because people got tired of the shiny suit era because again, you dropped Ready to Die, and then you had the commercial hits from that. You messed around and you dropped, you know, No Way Out. You dropped the double CD, Life After Death. I dropped Maze. All of these joints came out beginning in what Ready to Die came out 94, and Ready to Die came out. And you had the Craig Mack joint. You had a lot of flashy,
but that was gritty, and that's what I'm saying. I just think no, but that was though what Flavor in Your Ear was gritty as fuck. But I think the problem is when it comes to success, it's automatically associated with either crossing over or selling out or whatever the case may be. So with that, when everybody, nigga, like Warning is not a fucking commercial. It's a commercial success, but that's not a commercial track. You know what I'm saying? The same thing with Flavor in Your Ear. The same thing with Money, Power, Respect. You just that you had a chick, you know, even though Kim isn't a singer, she had a little bit melody to her. So, you know, that sounds like it's commercial. Those joints aren't commercial. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think about it, I think the only real, like, come on, bruh. type shit that they had on the Lock shit was that if you think I'm jiggy, yeah, that shit.
Yeah,
Like,
but that's even to Rebecca. I disagree a little bit because Rockefeller they were interested in that. Jay-Z's second album was executive
here you go.
produced. Jay-Z's second album was executive produced by Puffy. That's
There you
why they
go.
made the song Sunshine.
There you go.
Y'all act like y'all forget about Sunshine. Y'all act like
But I mean, I get what you're saying, but let's not act like that album was a Shiny Suit album.
yeah.
Because just like you had,
Ray, he had a song in there called "I Know What Girls Like." I know what girls like.
we're not gonna talk about
Remember that?
Oochie Wally Wally, Oochie Bang Bang. Like,
That's a classic. You know that's a classic.
no, it's not a classic, man. Stop.
And we're not even talking about that yet. That's not fronting though. But
Okay, my bad.
y'all act like Jay did not drop. You know what I mean? I know what girls like, and also Sunshine in response, because again, even Dame Dash said it himself. They were going after the Puffy money. That's why that second album was geared behind the bad boy look. That's why Puffy produced that album.
He had reaches as far as commercial success on that album, but that album was not a Shiny Suit album, is all I'm saying. Because as quick as you drop those two, he still had fucking what's that shit? I don't know the names of albums right now, but where he was like, what you gonna do when I pull up in the 4.5? You pull up in the 4.2. Like, that's not fucking that's not, commercial.
Facts.
And that's not fucking what's the name. Then you got Where I'm From, nigga.
Yeah,
Mars,
Where I'm From.
like,
that's the best song going at that, and You Must Love Me are the best.
Yeah, You Must Love Me. Yeah.
The best two songs on the album. But again, you can still tell the direction they were going. They were going after the money. Dame Dash said it himself. He said we were after the money. That's why we got Puffy to come in and executive produce and oversaw the project. It didn't go as planned. That's all I'm saying.
So let me ask you this then. We gonna come back to this, and we're gonna come back to the second half of the 90s. But I want to jump to today. Is there anything? What is New York sound today?
New York sound like a mix. I don't want to disrespect, but New York got a little bit of drill music going on right now, because you got some of the new artists like Fivio, Foreign. You got those guys. I mean, damn. You got so many young artists right now, even ASAP Rocky, the ASAP Mob, you know what I mean? They kind of have their own sound. Although those guys from Harlem, they got their own sound. And everything right now, if you listen to New York, it doesn't sound like your typical New York rap. I mean, your typical New York sound. For example, we talked about, the Rough Riders, right? And that sound that they had, that was their sound. That was their grittiness. That was Dame Grease, Swizzy, PK Killer, all of those guys. That were their sound. Dino Wall orchestrated that, right? Now what you're hearing is the newer artists, and I'm not shitting on them. I think some of the new artists are outstanding, but they're pulling music from different eras, from different areas, because they're influenced by that drill music. They're influenced by the South, of course. They're influenced by other elements that they're putting together. I can't listen to a new New York artist right now and say that's a New York sound, because I don't recognize that sound.
So I'm gonna disagree with that last part, because I'm gonna say Dave East is definitely New York.
Yeah,
in my eyes.
Nas artist Dave East, he's the exception.
Oh shit! See, this is why I have to throw shots when I can. But my question is: so is it safe to say now that is it safe to say now that New York is influenced and not the influencer?
I think we are influenced right now. I think New York had to. I honestly think that New York had to evolve in a different way, because the way music started transitioning, music went a whole different way. And I'm gonna be honest. If you go back and you start tracing back the steps, right, and you listen to even all kidding aside, who's the biggest artist out of New York? I want to say Nas, but he's not. Nas is a rapper.
You talking about period of all time?
It would be not all time, but like in a time when New York needed like someone to hold the torch the entire time.
If we're talking in the 90s, I'm going to say there was nobody that was the biggest artist because I just think everything was kind of fused together. At a time, there was like, I'm not a fan of his at all. Everybody knows this, but you wasn't like, even in Charlotte, you wasn't going to ride by and not hear Nas playing. And then it switched to Biggie and it switched to Jay. And, you know what I'm saying? It switched and it was Mobb Deep or whatever the case may be. Like there was always a different lane for everybody. Pun and crack as well. Right, nephew.
Christian just brought up my point. What I wanted to say is Jay, of course, is global, right? Jay was the trendsetter. If Jay do something, majority of the hip hop world would do it, right? Jay changed the sound of hip hop, of New York hip hop, as he started growing. When you got to the Blueprint, which to me is his best album of all time, not Reasonable Doubt, but Blueprint. When you get to the Blueprint, that album is so soulful, and it changed everything to the point where he started working not just with Kanye, but Jay was working with Pharrell. He was working with Timbo. He was working with, of course, what's your boy? His name escapes me. He's what's his name, man? Just Blaze. Just Blaze produced a lot of Jay stuff. Jay was working with mega producers, super producers. So the sound of New York kind of got lost in the shuffle because we were bringing in other elements. I mean, we started working with Dre. We started working with Track Masters. You start working with all of these super producers.
I think that was in their effort, like you said. I think that was in the effort to sell records, but I still think everything still tied back to Reasonable Doubt for me. Everything was still melodic and soulful and slowed down with the, exception, even though he was came out as a person that was going to be like a tongue twister type guy, he would still do that every now and again, for a verse or so, but he would never produce it for a whole song. So I still say Blueprint. I think Blueprint and Reasonable Doubt are one of the same. It's just the things that he's talking about is different. I think the production wise, it's the same in my eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah. When you got you went from Roberta Flack to Michael Jackson. That is not a difference.
Man, no.
That is not a difference.
Blueprint is probably the easiest listening album to ever hit stores. Period. Blueprint is very easy to listen. It was by design. The production is A+. Jay was in a different zone. Jay swagger was coming through like crazy. He had a lot of
misses to me though.
He was at an all-time high on Blueprint. Reasonable Doubt is great, but Blueprint to me was when you saw Jay at his best, hands down, track for track. I feel that, and I feel the way about Stillmatic. I feel that Stillmatic was the resurgence of Nas as a lyrical monster, as a storyteller, and as a pure writer. He's a rapper's rapper. He's a writer. I feel that Nas cannot make a Blueprint, and I don't think Jay definitely cannot make a Stillmatic, just because of the contrast between the two artists. And what I mean by that, Jay cannot make a song like Rewind, and I don't think that Nas can make a song like Ola Ovito. That's not his thing. So I say that to say this.
No, you say that to throw more shots. Stop with the disrespect, man. But that goes to my point with the Blueprint. The Blueprint has a lot of that is a throwaway track. That Ola Ovito, whatever, that shit is a throwaway. Yeah. Even though I think Jay got busy and this other guy kind of got busy a little bit, to me, Renegade is a throwaway. That fucking girls is a throwaway.
Girls is dope. Girls is dope.
Nah, that shit is a throwaway. And then I don't like that. Even though at that time I was in the club heavy or whatever, I don't like that H to the is V to the. That's a throwaway too.
It ran its course when it first came out. It was dope. I think it ran its course, but I say that because I do think that Blueprint.
But Nas got a lot more throwaways, so.
Hell no. You can't name no throwaway on Stillmatic, straight up. Stillmatic from top.
Oh, no, I can't. Everything past what is it? I want to say Past Rewind. I could be a little bit off, but everything Past Rewind is a
You're way
throwaway.
off. Stillmatic was phenomenal. But anyhow, I mean, even you go back and you listen to the Murder Inc. sound. Like, I don't think Irv Gotti gets enough credit, and that's mainly because the way 50 Cent shitted on all of them. And I think people like got amnesia all of a sudden that Irv Gotti wasn't really doing a lot for New York hip hop. Irv Gotti did a lot. I mean, J owe Irv a lot. J.O.
It's
Irv,
a lot of people owes Irv.
they owe Irv, man. I don't think Irv did enough.
Murder Inc. owes Irv. Rockefeller owes Irv.
Yes.
And let's not forget
DMX.
yeah. Well, not DMX. The entire fucking Rough Riders camp.
Yes.
They owe Murph.
They owe Irv. Irv gave Jay the biggest hit of his career and took him from being Jay-Z to being Jehovah. And
Talking about the Eddie joint.
that was the Annie joint. Irv gave him that. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's when people don't want to talk about that. But even Ja Rule from Queens, of course, Ja Rule took over the game for about what, 4 or 5 strong years? Like everything that they were dropping was hot. I don't care what no one said. It was crazy. Facts, right? Randy, facts. Def Jam owes Irv. Straight up. Irv does not get the respect that he should get. Straight up. He does not get the full respect. And to me, if you think about, and I know Dre, we have posted this before on the promos, but you look at some of the architects of the sound of New York. And I left Irv out there because I wasn't thinking about it until later on today. I'm like, damn, Irv really brought New York back. Because if you think about it, our group has slipped off of the hip hop world because when the West Coast came, they came. I mean, it was a short run. Don't get me wrong, West Coast probably had the shortest run of hip hop, period. But they still came.
I would say the Midwest did.
No, because the Midwest,
they never had a run. They never had a serious run.
you got to throw Kanye in there. You got to throw Common in there.
Like I said, the Midwest never had a serious run. But we'll talk about that another day.
Yeah, we talk about that during that time, but I disagree. But we'll talk about that at a different time. I think that Irv Gotti, and I know people may hate me for saying this or hate me for saying this, but let's not sleep on Dipset. Jim Jones, Cam, Jewels. I'm not gonna front. When they first came out, I was like, these niggas are corny. But then I don't know what happened. They had some of the best beats. They couldn't rap worth the shit to me. I was like, these niggas are mad. This is really hard. These are real Harlem dudes. This sound
I really wish Mark was on here so I could get him to recite his favorite lyric. Computers computing this shit.
Oh, but Cam swagger was so bananas. Yo, I remember everybody was rocking pink, colorful clothes. I mean, the big hats, the big clothes. Dipset started another trend, another wave with the New York sound, where the music was so aggressive and they were going at it. I know we were talking in the chat a few days ago, and Mark made a silly ass comment about French Montana giving Jim Jones that work. I'm like, Jim Jones will smoke French Montana easily in the versus battle. And that's not even close. I think Jim Jones produced some of the best music out of the Dipset camp. And I would challenge anybody to debate me to that.
I think, but
Jones have been the most consistent.
You have to look at it from a different standpoint. You have to look at it from the standpoint of the actual fan. Like, you're a hip hop head, so it's going to hit different with you. So I think in a versus battle, the crowd is going to say French Montana was that guy. Man, but I do have a question though. At what point do we stop being old men? And what I mean by that is, at what point do we give these cats their just due that are in the game today? Because, and the reason why I say that, because I forget, was it ASAP Ferg?
Yeah.
This is not a guy that I would normally listen to, but hearing him on that track with Nas and my homeboy, I love
Fabio.
what's it?
Yeah, Fabio.
Yeah, like he snapped. And
Yes,
then
Ferg.
he not
Ferg
only
is-
snapped, but he snapped with someone that is arguably the greatest of all times with some people.
Yeah.
So
Most-
when do we stop being old men and say, "Hey, we got to listen, and we are the problem as old men, and we got to give these young guys their just due, and they
Nah.
have their own New York type of sound."
Nah, I'm with that. Fabio was hot. Ferg been in the game for a minute. I've always respected Ferg Penn. Ferg is nice. I like Ferg going back when he was doing the Shabba Ranks joint. He had that Shabba Ranks joint. You know what I mean? I've always been a Ferg fan. I think that again, because we love hip hop and we love the essence of hip hop, we have expectations. We have high expectations, right? For music, period. Because you and I, we talk about music all the time. We have expectations for music. And I think the best example I can give you, man, like I was listening to an old album today by Marvin Gaye called Hear My Dear. And it's a B-side album that Marvin made years ago that never got airplay. None of those, he never had a single on that album. But that album is the dopest album that Marvin penned. And as someone who loves music, I respect that album to the point where it's hard for me to listen to commercial stuff that doesn't line up. I make that point to say this. The new music that we hear right now, I think Pop Smoke was on his way. Unfortunately, rest in peace, Pop Smoke. I felt like he was on his way. I understood the hype from the younger crowd, but it wasn't something that I dived into that much, if that makes sense. I thought the guy was talented. You know, again, rest in peace to the king. But I think that for me, it's not my thing. And that's me. It's hard. I'm so nostalgic. It's hard for me to go back and listen to newer music that doesn't resonate. You know what I mean?
But I agree. And I'm very stubborn on this issue because I'm the same way, but I do try to open up. And I do listen to a little bit more. I definitely listen to a lot more than what you do. But I look at it like this, man. I remember when I was a youngster, like I really loved Bone Thugs and Harmony. You know what I'm saying? And my mama, she used to be like, "You don't even understand what the hell they saying." And I'm like, "I do. I can rap it." But then I would, like, 30 minutes later, I can hear my mama rapping's Rapper's Delight. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, whoa, I don't know what the fuck they said. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
But I think it's the same thing in my eyes. You know what I'm saying? Bone was nothing like Rapper's Delight. I mean, well, Sugar Hill Gang, but it was something that was needed at the time. And it was something that helped push Bone forward, just the same way that Wu-Tang is the same thing that helped push ASAP Mob forward, or whatever the case may be. So I just feel like we have to give them that just, or we have to realize that we just can't shit on it. The music today is not for us. So don't shit on it is all I really want to get at.
But Dre, I think that goes back to, we came up in an era when hip hop was golden. We came up in the golden era of hip hop. That's not
to us.
This period is, we know that.
But but I look at it the same way, because like when we was younger and we saying Nas is the greatest, you know, or Biggie or Jay or Face or whoever, you got your uncles like, boy, don't play with KRS-One like that. Like, don't disrespect Rakim like that. You know what I'm saying?
But we still came from that cloth. You know what I mean? We forgot. We're 80s babies, right? We were born in like 80 at the brink, right? So we came in when hip hop was growing. We grew with hip hop. So our expectation is different than the younger generation, because we can talk about the first time you heard Wu-Tang, Into the 36 Chambers. We can talk about the first time you heard Outkast, when you heard 3 Stacks spitting at his best. You know what I mean? Today's music, it's not, I don't want to say that it's bad. I think it's necessary because it's a different era, of course. It's a different feel, it's a different vibe. But I do think that we had the benefit as young dudes, and our generation, the 80s generation, we had the benefit to live through Rakim at his height, when Rakim was the king, when Big Daddy Kane was the king. Nas, Jay, Big. We came through the best of the best at that time. You know what I mean? Right now, can you name 3 new artists right now that you can be saying in the same sentence of those legends that I just discussed?
I can't, but this is what I will say. I will say, nephew, I want you to chime in and say who's hot in New York right now. Nephew only what, 20? So he has a different feel. Now, it could be bad because his dad is a southern hip hop purist, like to the point where his dad will probably never listen to a Jay-Z album or a fucking Nas album.
Yeah.
He's that type southern. And then he also had me along the way, like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like when he rap, and he's from the hometown of Big Crit. So he has a different appreciation of older, you know what I'm saying, music or whatever the case may be. But I know he's still young, so he's still gonna listen to what he listened to. You know what I'm saying? I can't do it, but I don't listen to many new artists. Like I listen to Dave East. I consider him to be new. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Dave East, of course he's being guided by Nas, and but you can tell that East has an old hip hop soul. You can tell because even him doing the joint album with Styles P, you know what I'm saying? And the way East, spits, the way he approaches the game of hip hop, of music, you can tell that he's being guided in that way because he was influenced by that. And he's not a young dude. He's about like I think he's closer to 30 than he is 25. So he's not like a young dude, but he's a younger artist in comparison to some of the greats. But Dre, again, I tell you this because we came up in the era when Busta Rhymes was considered still today, in my opinion, still one of the greatest. We came up in the era of the Busta Rhymes, the Redmans, the Woos. These are our legends. These are like aliens of the rap game because no one can do what they do. They father styles that others had to emulate. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why it's not that we're shitting on the new school or we're shitting on these younger rappers at all. Because I don't want no one to think that, because hopefully we can get some of those guys to come on here. But we're talking about an era, a golden era of hip hop that we hold near and dear to us. That's why we are so nostalgic, because anytime you get into that mood, you want to listen to some real shit, you put in that Outkast, you put in that Southern playlist, the Cadillac Funky music, you put that shit in because it takes you to that place. When I told you before, even before Nas, Wu-Tang was always my first, like, the shit to me. Like, you cannot tell me I wasn't a member of Wu-Tang. You can't tell me that, because that I resonated with everything they were doing. Because to me, that was my hip hop. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. And I understand what you're saying. I just really want us to give these young cats their just due. And I think another thing is we have to realize what we did as a generation. Just like we were talking on the other night on the pod about, we're the parents, and so to speak, we're the parents of hip hop. So what we did was we created a lane where it wasn't about the lyrics. It was about, let me make this money. Let me take my people up out of here. You know what I'm saying? So people came more engulfed with the money. Like, man, this is not East Coast, or I don't even know where the cat from, but there's this guy named Riff Raff. Like, he was on Sway, and like he really had a following. And so I'm like, let me check this motherfucker out. Sway giving him a stamp of approval. And I hear him. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
But he's making money. We created that because we okayed the whackness to excel. And I think that I do think that started on the East Coast. It started when we allowed horse and carriage to excel.
Don't say it. That's crazy, man.
Nah, man, I'm dead ass serious. Like, we always had little gimmicks. Like, if you think back, you had old Skilo or whatever his name was. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good. I know. I'm just saying. Period. In hip hop, we always had some little type of gimmick rapper that would do something big, and they would make it big for one song, whatever the case may be. But
Yeah.
You know, Cam, he was able to survive with a lot of whack shit. Now, Cam, I do like Cam. I grew to like Cam. Same way you said, it didn't start out me liking Cam, but at the point, it was like, God damn, what's really going on?
Yeah.
You know
But
what I'm saying?
But that's the thing with Cam. Cam was able to take it. Cam purposely did what he did. Cam can actually spit.
Oh yes, I know.
Cam can actually spit. But Cam did that because again, he started a whole new movement. Even if you go back and you look at that G Unit movement, right, with 50, 50, Yayo, Bango. I'm talking about before, you know, everything happened and everybody kind of like got up. But 50, Bango, Domination, Lloyd Banks, Yayo. I mean, you go back and listen to that first wave, that was like New York bringing the street back with 50, right? Because again, New York rappers got so commercial and because they had to sell. Like Snoop, Dre, those guys been selling records after ads on the West Coast. West Coast was killing it. So New York had to change it up a little bit. Even if you go back and listen to Mobb Deep, rest in peace, Prodigy, Mobb Deep kept it 1000 street until they had to change it up. They were staying straight to what they were, but they weren't selling records. It got to the point where rappers started clowning other rappers, more so Jay was clowning other rappers for not selling records. So they had to end up shifting their sound just to try to sell records.
But it's still, no matter what's the reasoning, I get it. But no matter what's the reasoning, it still foster what New York has today. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the change happened was, oh nah, these niggas down south getting money. Like they independent, they ain't got nobody telling them what to do. We want to do it just like them. And especially when you're talking about, you know, going back to Cam, that was Cam's move. He was like, yo, Koch out here giving fucking Slim Thug $10 on the tape. You know what I'm saying? Slim Thug ain't selling nothing but 100,000 copies, but he doing that 3 times a year. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he was like, nah, I'm finna go this lane, and now I'm finna bring everybody with me. Everybody need to come to Koch. You know what I'm saying?
But that was after, you know, you got to think, man, back then, all of the rappers wanted to either sign a record deal with Def Jam or Loud Records. Loud Records and Def Jam was like to me, they were like the big companies out of New York because they were representing hip hop at its full, especially Def Jam were representing hip hop. You had, you know, some other, you know, like Columbia Records, you had Arista, you had Geffen, you had, you know, companies like that. But for the most part, and Priority, but for the most part, you had like Def Jam and really Loud Records at that time because they had some of the best acts. You know, Loud had Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, Big Pun. I mean, you know, Fat Joe, I think, was with Atlantic, but you had some heavy hitters out there, right? And the South was selling CDs. You go back to Master P and those guys, they were selling CDs at the trunk, making money. Even T.I. was selling his CDs out the trunk before he became the T.I. that everyone knows today. You know what I mean? New York, they was like, yo, Def Jam Records is right down the street. Let's go hop the train, get in front of there. Let's try to get him, you know, whatever, get in front of Russell Simmons or whoever, Rick Rubin, whoever, and try to Kevin Lyles, all those guys. Let's try to get in front of them to get this record deal. That was the biggest thing for New York artists. And when the South was just really out there hustling CDs. You know what I mean? So in the early 2000s, that's when you start seeing the mixtape trend in New York because, again, they had to start making a different way because the record labels weren't pushing the records that they used to. It lost, and that's where we are today. Record labels are obsolete.
The mixtape game, though, I think and I guess that's where we have a difference of opinion. The mixtape game is where it was at, but it was allowing people to still be exactly who they were. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I think Joe Budden, that's a perfect example, in my opinion. He would never make a good album but Joe Budden has classic mixtapes. You know what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
Mood Music, I'd say Mood Music 2, 3, and maybe 4. 4 is kind of one of those, I don't know if it's there or not, but he has definitely two classics when you talk about the Mood Music series, or you talk about of course, the damage that G Unit done in the mixtape game, they was still allowed to be themselves. He didn't have to make what was it, Go Shawty, it's your birthday. He didn't have to make that type of shit when it came to his mixtapes. That's also what made people like Jewels and Fab shine. Because, Fab shine on his mixtapes because now Fab could be like, yo, I'm really a nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is Brooklyn all day. Don't get it twisted. But then when he produces an album that's for a label, it's like, nah, I got to get him this Fab. I got to get him that watered down shit. You know what I'm saying? So the mixtape game is really what kept New York Sound alive for as long as it did. But it was also like people was just like, yo, I'm just using the mixtape game to get on. Now that I'm on, I need to go and get this. I want to try and get this Jay-Z money, which it ain't happening, but I'm gonna try it anyway.
Exactly. Because Jay-Z had the commercial hits. He had some of the best producers cranking out some of the best, singles that money can buy, and it crossed over. It really crossed over.
But that's why I say earlier, I'm not here, but I know I've said it on here before. I don't know what it was about producers. It's like if it don't matter if you Jay-Z or you Memphis Bleak or you freaking Mano or whoever from the city, I'm still gonna charge you $50,000 for this beat. But it just felt like for whatever reason, when I'm giving a beat to Jay, I'm gonna make sure that it's a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I just never understood that. And I think that's to their own detriment, because you look at like Just Blaze, man. Just Blaze got on Myth Bleak CD, and that shit, all his shit was trash. I'm like, come on, Blaze, like what?
It was, but when Just Blaze did, he did the Dynasty album as well, and that didn't do well, and that's why they went to Kanye and really got all the production from Kanye, because Just Blaze had threw a couple of duds out there, and Just Blaze is a dope producer. But let me ask you this, man. Do you think that the mixtape DJs really kept the New York sound alive? And I'm talking about the Funk Flex, the DJ Clues. Do you think those heavy hitters are Big Cap, the Drama King, K Slade? Do you think those guys really kept things going?
I definitely think they did, and to an extent, I think they still do. When you listen to somebody like K Slade still is. I think he's the heavy influence into the real New York sound. If you just look at that fucking, he put out a song that's like 17 minutes long with 50 different rappers, and he got people from everywhere, but that is a New York sound. You know what I'm saying? So he's definitely the one to credit. I think him and the Envy situation, they kind of went a different lane. I think Clue was all about just, hey, put me on top. You know what I'm saying? As Slade was always about, hey, I'm putting on for the city. You know what I'm saying? I'm from New York. It's always going to be New York. I think Flex just, and I hate to say this about a legend, but I just think Flex just fell off, period. So he was never there. But Cap, he's another one that just always put on entirely for the city of New York. So when you talk about the mixtape DJs, they definitely are the reason that the New York sound that is still there is still there. Who Kid is another one who's just kind of like, it was like, I got this 50 Cent money, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you listen to Who Kid on fucking Saturdays, it's trash. Like it's like he plays the same mix in a different order every Saturday. You know what I'm saying? And
man.
I'm dead. Like even
every
like
now and then he get in his bag.
Listen, this is what I want you to do. Listen Saturday. I guarantee you, I will put $500 on it. He is going to play Stay Fly. I gotta stay fly. Like that's cool to throw in the mix every now and again, but come on, Who Kid? We don't need that every Saturday. You know what I'm saying?
Who Kid is more personality than anything else at this point. Like, and that's not shitting on Who Kid. Who Kid is a dope DJ, but he's more personality now. It's the in between skits and things of that nature that he's more, known for at this point. He's a wild guy. So, and of course he's 50s DJ. So yeah. I think for me, man, I know we're getting close to wrapping this thing up. I think, and I thought about this earlier today, where a lot of, you're a DJ yourself, and you guys have a hard time really playing New York stuff in a setting. And you play New York mix, you got to play a New York mix, as opposed to just playing New York music intertwined with a Southern music or what have you. And for me, like I said, when I was younger, going to clubs, I remember it was tough, man, for the DJ to really put on a Nas record in a Southern state. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Uchiwale. He could play Uchiwale.
Don't do that, man. Don't do that.
Or you can play Shawty, say what you like.
Yo, you can't, I guarantee I know you were winding up when that song came.
Boy, stop. I'm finna go get you on your ass. Boy, stop. That boy fool up.
That was not one of my favorite songs, but anyhow, but like I was saying, it was one of those things where I think that the Southern DJ was shitting on New York for a minute because, of course, even when we had the guest and he was saying that Nas and other New York rappers don't get no play down south, and I think that's because a lot of times Southern DJs are limited in knowing how to make the crowd move because they think they get to play an Annie Up record from New York just to get the crowd moving, not realizing you play a good DJ will know how to bring in New York State of Mind and get the crowd moving regardless. I've been to the Nas.
Time out. We finna stop this shit right now. Because what you not, I'm finna cut this shit short. Because New York State of Mind, you cannot play that at a party and keep the party going. What you can do is play New York State of Mind at a concert that is featuring like an East Coast rapper, and you will get the crowd hyped. So it's a different setting. If we're talking about a straight up party and you play New York State of Mind, that shit, that shit come on, chicks gonna be like, yo, what the fuck is this? You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no movement. A nigga gonna be in the straight B-boy stance and he gonna be bobbing his head just like that. There is no movement. So nobody wants to hear New York State of Mind at a fucking party. New York State of Mind is one of them shits. When it comes on, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's my shit." And then if you at the concert, everybody gonna be rocking along with that shit. Everybody gonna spit that shit from word for word, and it's gonna seem like it is a hype song, but it's not.
Yeah, but you can play "Sorry Miss Jackson."
You can't even play "Sorry Miss Jackson."
But you do.
No one plays "Sorry Miss Jackson" at a fucking no.
Yeah.
"Sorry Miss Jackson" is not gonna slap at a party. So it's not gonna happen, man.
The point I'm making is Southern DJs still play it.
Nah, they don't. What the point you're making is very invalid, and we're gonna close it out like this, especially when you're talking about the fact that New York has been shitting on everybody for years, and for you to get up here and say that Southern DJs are shitting on New York rappers, and Southern DJs is the reason that New York is being influenced by everybody else, it's a goddamn shame. And you, as a Harlem guy, everybody eats B. Like, I would expect better from you. Like, hey, I just don't understand it, man.
Man. Southern DJs, really stop hating, man. That's all I'm saying. That's beginning with you, Dre. Stop hating. Jay is a hater. Straight up. Everybody knows Dre is a hater. Yo, man.
Hey,
but
man.
I have fun, man. I have fun. I wanted to, to dive into a lot of different things, man. But I think that would be like, you can break down a New York episode of hip hop sound in like 4 or 5 different episodes, man, just because of how deep it is. It's not like, you're in Atlanta and you can talk about that within 30 minutes. With this, you can really dive into you can really dive into everything about, hip hop when it comes from all that good stuff. I think that for me, and I want to ask you this question before we get out of here. Like, when, of course, you grew up in the same era that I grew up in, do you think that what was the song, or what was really the song or the group that really draw you from a New York state of mind? Like what was that song in the late 80s or the early 90s that drew you to hip hop?
So disclaimer, I got on to hip hop late outside of commercial hip hop just because I am from the Bible Belt. As everybody know, I'm from Charlotte. So my mama didn't play that shit. Like,
Yeah.
so when NWA is playing and shit like that, like it was, hey, cut that shit off. So I got into hip hop a little bit later. So the song that actually drew me to New York hip hop, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, he's not from New York," but it was Redman. When I heard "Can't Wait," like I was hooked.
It changed.
So that was the joint for me, man. "Can't Wait" was just like, whoa, my mind was fucking blown. So
Right.
and that's why he's my favorite rapper to this day.
Right. I had the benefit to grow up around uncles that were b-boys. You know, I had an uncle, you know, God rest his soul, my Uncle Mike was a rapper. You know what I mean? And I had another uncle, my mom's younger brother, was a breakdancer. He used to battle, you know, breakdancing and pop locking, like Shabba Doo. That's his nickname was Shabba Doo. So I grew up around, you know, hip hop like that. You know what I mean? And I was, you know, trying to be a rapper myself. You know what I'm saying? So I think that for me, I know I talk about Nas all the time, but I didn't gravitate to Illmatic in the beginning. When I first heard Illmatic, it was way over me. I was like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like I couldn't even understand it. I didn't get into Illmatic until It Was Written came out. I had to go back and listen to Illmatic after I heard It Was Written, if that makes sense. It really got me. I was already an MC Shan, LL Cool J fan, straight up. But when I really started listening to hip hop, New York hip hop, was really when Wu-Tang came out. When Wu-Tang came out, that was the first time I can honestly say that I fell in love with hip hop. And I made it a point to like really like surround myself around hip hop, because Wu-Tang first album and everything after that, and that first wave, all the way to Wu-Tang Forever, was like chronicalizing everything that I was thinking about with hip hop, how it should be, how it should sound, and how it should feel. You know what I mean? And you know, you probably think that Nas was, but it wasn't Nas. It was always Wu-Tang.
Nah, you told me that a couple times.
Yeah.
Hey man, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We're gonna go ahead and end on that note. Big up to hip hop, man. Hip hop is, I don't think people understand, hip hop is really our life. Stacks is on the line now, and Stacks tell you, I don't think there's a day that goes by that we don't talk about hip hop in some way, form, or fashion. Hip hop is really important. When I was thinking not too long ago about just how, like, I should have been a DJ a long time ago because that's all I did was just play music. It didn't matter where it was from. It didn't matter what type of music it was. It could have been anything from Roberta Flack to fucking Aerosmith to Nickelback. So it's not just hip hop, but hip hop is the cornerstone. So I just want to really give a big shout out to hip hop, a big shout out to Blackjack TV. That's channel 199 on the Zingo TV app. Big shout outs to the the 1 Mile High Radio Network. Big shout out to I-95 South Sports Network. We're on all of those platforms. We're getting it. Next week, what we have coming to you is second part of our 5-part series. We're going to get into the tweets about the ATL. Oh, we're moving to 6. Okay, my bad. Yeah, because we couldn't agree on the 5th city. So we're moving to 6. We're going to talk about the ATL. We're going to talk about its influence back then as its influence today. Tomorrow, make sure you come back here at 7 and you check out the Merv and Stack show. They will have special guest Mark, special guest Tina B. They will be talking about power. Wednesday, make sure you check us all out. We come together like Voltron, and we're going to give y'all some laughter, and we're going to talk about some good shit this week. We're going to talk about some fine drinking. We're going to talk about some wino drinking. We're going to talk about some shit you probably shouldn't do. You shouldn't be drinking because you might be, in a world of hurt the next day, or some shit might happen and you don't know what happened. So we're talking about alcohol this weekend. This Wednesday. So make sure you check us out.
Indeed. The ATL segment should take us about 15 minutes. So we'll probably find something else to talk about after that. I'm just kidding. Nah. Yo, but thank you all for hopping on. Yo, tune in. Yo, keep following us. And hey, Dre, it's been fun, man.